Hey guys, it's Cecilia. Today we're going to be working on my 2022 album. This is part of January. I'm just going to cut up the photos and get started. I don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing. All I know is that I have the photos, but that's part of the fun, and I think I'm just going to do my own thing this time around. I hope you enjoy it, and I'm going to fast forward you guys. Just to let you guys know, there's going to be a lot of fluctuation between the colors in the video, and that is because sometimes the sun would hide behind the clouds, and while I tried to update the camera settings, it didn't always happen or it wasn't fast enough, and so I apologize for that in advance. I printed the photos using the Canon Pixma Pro 100 using the Kirkland Costco photo paper. That's 8.5 by 11, and then I trimmed them apart using the Fiskars Precision Trimmer and then followed by the Tonic Studios Guillotine. Next, I grabbed the stash of December Daily journal cards. I was hoping to find a card that said something about taking down a tree. I picked up the card that said the story of today since it was white and it had plenty of space to journal. I then grabbed the 4x6 patterned cards since the pocket that I'm trying to fill is a 4x4. I really liked the colorful striped card, but I thought it might be too busy with all of this. So I thought I would try something different and use white cardstock instead and cut it into 4x4 squares. What I'm thinking of doing is stamping the word boots on this title card, and so I pull out my stamp binder and I got this idea to make an alpha stamp guide from Laura Wansick. She had a community day on Ali Edwards' site back in, I believe, June. Laura recommended that we do a sample of all of our alphas with measurements so that we can easily figure out what size alpha we can use depending on how many letters we want to stamp. The alphas that I wanted to try out were the Carrie Bradford Max Alpha and the Studio Calico Kindred Spirits. The Kindred Spirits is sold out, but you can still get the digital if you'd like. Next, I'm putting my 4x4 card in the Misty stamping platform, and I want to use a green ink that closely matches the word of on that card. I made an ink swatch book using Jennifer McGuire's template, and I'm not finding anything, so I remember that I have some new Studio Calico Color Theory inks that I haven't swatched yet, and so I go and grab them. This first color that I'm trying out is Limelight, and it's a little too bright for my liking. Next, I try out Yes Peace, and I do prefer that color, but I'm also not a fan of greens, so I want to try out some other colors. These are all from Studio Calico. The first one is the new Mustard and then Creme Brulee. And I checked the colors against the photo of the boots, and I want to try out a couple more colors, Peachy Keen and Pink Lemonade. So I'm setting up the card once again, and then I am going to try out Kindred Spirits first. I feel like this font is a little bit whimsical, a little bit playful, so I'm not going to put the letters in a straight line, and I want them to be kind of floating around. And what I want to do is alternate the colors, first Mustard and then Pink Lemonade. But I wanted the Pink Lemonade to be a little bit darker, so I stamped it twice. And that is the beauty of using a stamping platform, because once you set up your paper again, make sure that it's nice and flush, then you can go ahead and stamp it again. What I'm not liking about this is that I feel like the letters aren't slanted enough. They're a little too far apart, and I'm just not really digging it. I suddenly remember about my Studio Calico January kit, and I'm really digging this card. It goes really nicely with the boots, but my dilemma is that it's got a little bit of writing and a lot of white on there, and so to cut it as a 4x4, it's a little bit difficult. So I start to think of ways that I can cover up certain parts. I'm like, okay, let me just measure this and see where we're at for 4 inches. So I'm flipping through trying to decide which other one can help me cover up parts of the card that I'm not liking. One of the good things and the bad things about Studio Calico cards is that they are double-sided, and sometimes you really like one side and sometimes you really love both sides. And so I flipped it over and I absolutely love the pink with that. I love this card, but really I like the tan card better, and I just put it aside for now. And I lost some footage, and basically I decided to stamp boots with the Mustard and Carrie Bradford's Max Alpha. At some point I decided that I liked the boots going up on the side, and I wanted to add a journaling card on to the right side where I could write more about the boots. I have my older journal cards organized by category, and so I grabbed the pile that was for journaling. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but I decided to not use the December daily journal card. I was still really loving the pink and mustard combination, so I grabbed a card that had the pink background on there. And I also wanted to grab a couple more cards for the other side, just so that they would coordinate all together. I'm definitely liking this light pink card, but I'm also still loving the tan card. So I decided to measure it and make sure that it will fit without the white boxes. So I swap it out for the dotted card because I feel like this way the boots kind of go with the tan, and then the pink goes with the other pink, and the pink of the ornament and the heart and Maya's tag. There's a lot of pink in this spread. Moving on, I'm going to be stamping the card with a 1 Canoe 2 date stamp and Inky Black by Studio Calico. The pen I'm going to be using for writing is the Tombow Mono Drawing Pen. When I'm editing this, I get really annoyed by watching me write, and so you'll see that a lot of times I will cut out clips of things that are repetitive or are taking too long, and that's also because I lose my patience, and I feel that if I don't want to watch it, you don't want to watch it. So I hope you guys don't mind that I kind of leave out a lot of the repetitive stuff. Unlike Kindred Spirits, I wanted Max to be as perfectly aligned as I possibly could, considering that it stamps, and the S doesn't bother me, so we're good. In order to get them straight, I drew a line with pencil, and so I just waited until it was fully dry and then I erased it. To make sure that the journal card fit in perfectly, I just trimmed a little bit of the edge off so that it wouldn't cut off any of the stamp part. For adhering journal cards and things that are not transparent, I like to use the Tombow permanent adhesive. And when I'm adhering together two things that have nice corners, I like to use a stamping platform to make sure that they align nicely. When I'm putting in two 3x4 cards in a 4x6 pocket, I like to tape them together so that they don't move around. For the right side, I'm going to be using a pocket page that is 9x12, and I'm actually going to be trimming out the top row so that I have 6 3x4 pockets. Sometimes the photos fit a little bit snug, so I have to trim them a little bit further to make sure that they fit in nicely. Once I put the photos in the pockets, then I'm going to trim the top row off. And why the top row, you ask? I feel like it's because I'm more likely to not screw it up if it's at the top and the photos are below than trying to trim the ones below and making sure that I don't trim it too far. Next, I'm going to be using the Next Chapter stamp kit, and these little boxes that I'm going to stamp on white cardstock are going to cover the text on the tan card that says all the goals. I decided to go with creme brulee, and if you're not careful inking up the stamp, then you are going to end up with some ink in the middle, which you do not want. So you have to just be really careful that you're not pressing the ink pad too hard, and mainly you're concentrating on the edges. I decided to stamp this again because I want a little bit of a darker color. There's a little gap in the line impression, and so I'm just making sure that there is an actual gap on the stamp itself. And then I stamp another one because I want two boxes for journaling, one for the Menudo and one for the Five Guys. I'm fuzzy cutting these little boxes, and I'm just arranging them on the card. When I'm deciding on the placement of these boxes, what I'm thinking about is making it clear which photo you are journaling about. I also have my stamps organized in categories, and this is the food category, so I just grabbed all the ones that are food related and brought them over. I set aside the Studio Calico meal planning stamp kit, which is available digitally, and the Everyday Explorers mealtime prompts, and also the collaboration with Abby Sai called Let's Eat. The mealtimes prompt is still available on the Everyday Explorers website, and I'm going to put a link down below to all the items that I used on my blog, wanderlustdocumented.com. I'm just gluing down these boxes, and then I'm going to do a little bit of stamping. First, I'm going to stamp Let's Eat in between them. I'm using the Inky Black by Studio Calico again. It took me about 3 tries, I think because my ink pad is drying out, so it needs a little bit more love. I'm looking at what else I can add on this card, and I picked the fork and spoon. And to be perfectly honest, if I were to do this again, I think what I would do is make a pattern with the stamps. Maybe one, maybe all the diagrams, but with like watermark ink, like Versamark, or maybe the Gina K embossing and watermark ink. I would love to link a video for you guys, but honestly, I can't remember where I saw it. I feel like it was Tina from Social Paper Plan, but I'm not 100%. The prompts that I'm going to stamp on this card are Craving Satisfied and Worth the Wait. I'm originally from Mexico and I do love my Mexican food. It's really hard to find good Mexican food here in Germany. One day my mom said, "Oh, I'm gonna make menudo for your sister." And I was like, oh, now I'm craving it. So what I had to do was order the meat 1 week ahead of time and then go looking for the bones for the broth, which were available in this tiny grocery store, luckily. This was my first time making it, so it was quite labor intensive. And of course, I did share it with one of my friends here who is also Mexican. But the craving was definitely satisfied. As for the Five Guys, the nearest one to us is about 45 minutes away, and it is a pop-up restaurant, which means that they have only outdoor seating. And I had gone to the outlet mall to get some stuff with my friend, and I asked my husband if he wanted some Five Guys, even though it'd be like an hour before I got home, and he decided that he wanted it anyway. He said that it was just as good. So that is why I chose the stamp Worth the Wait. Moving on to the last journaling card, this one is going to talk about Maya. She usually doesn't like to sit on my lap. My husband is her person, and so I wanted to capture this moment where she actually was sitting on my lap and she was letting me pet her and give her a kiss. And so I wanted to use one of the cat parent stamps from Everyday Explorers. This one says, "Kitty snuggles are the best." I double stamped this phrase using Studio Calico's Pink Lemonade on white cardstock, and I tore one edge for a little bit of texture. And then I adhered it to a paper person journal card, and I used my tiny attacher for a little bit of extra detail. For the date, I used the flamingo ink pad to make sure that it stood out against the lighter pink background. I first journaled about Maya finally using the bed that I set up for her in the hallway. Our floors are heated and that is one hot spot, which she adores, and I set up the bed for her, but she didn't want to use it for the longest time, and so when she finally did, I had to take a picture. Instead of adding arrows, what I did with the date and prompt stamps was I stamped them on the same side as the photo that the journaling was about. I did trim a little bit of excess from that back of the card to make sure that it fit in the pocket. And I'm just about ready to put them in the album. But before I put in the second spread, I have to make sure I punch hole it for this album. Sometimes I wait until I put everything in the album and then I figure out what I want to add in regards to embellishments. I want to add a stamp to the boots and it says warm and cozy, and this is from the stamp kit from Studio Calico and in a creative bubble. I believe it's pronounced Huga, or maybe it's more like Huga. I googled it, but I still don't know. I stamped it using mustard, and then I wanted to have the same torn texture as the Kitty Snuggles stamp. I use a 5x7 photo case to store a lot of my different ephemera, and so I pulled out the one that has a bunch of hearts, and I ended up going with a very old Studio Calico one that has little gold flecks on it, and then I call these layouts done. Okay, so what's going on is that we're going to be traveling for the next 2 weeks, and I finished the voiceovers for one video, so I'll probably try to post that next week or maybe the week after that. Otherwise, I will see you guys at the end of March or maybe the beginning of April. So if you're subscribed or you're thinking about subscribing, go ahead and hit that bell so that you'll be notified when I post. I promise I am the worst YouTuber and I only post like once in a while. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for watching and take care.